This is the Work at Home Heroes podcast. Your host, Caitlin Pyle, digs deep with people from all over the world who make money from home. Get ready to wake up to a world of possibility for freedom, flexibility, and a life you'll love.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Work at Home Heroes podcast. I'm here with Melissa Kreikemeier, all the way from Kihei, Hawaii, the cool part of the island. So I'm told. I've not yet been to Hawaii, but now I really want to go there. Now, Melissa is a forensic scientist turned science teacher turned proofreader / copy editor. She actually started my Proofread Anywhere transcript proofreading course about a year ago and took a long detour into scientific copyediting and proofreading. So I'm really looking forward to talking to her about that because we're both word nerds. Love it. She ended up freelancing after she repatriated back to the United States and got a full-time scientific copyediting job, is it? That's really exciting. And so Melissa's really excited that she gets to combine her inner science and word nerds into one job. I'm excited to talk to you about that as well. Welcome to the show, Melissa.
I'm glad to be here.
Did I get that right? You were outside of the United States, and then, I mean, you're in the US now, but were you outside the United States at one point and then you came back?
Yeah, so I worked as a forensic scientist in the DNA section for 7 years, and then I decided to fulfill a bucket list dream and live and work abroad. So I taught science abroad. So I was in China for 1 year and the Marshall Islands for 2 years. And I started your transcript class when I was still in the Marshall Islands.
Wow, that is really cool. So you're literally proofreading anywhere.
Yeah, I was.
Cool. So you started the Proofread Anywhere transcript proofreading class about a little over a year ago, it looks like. But before that, you were a forensic scientist. Tell us a little bit about that.
So forensic science is the application of science to law. So I worked in a crime lab in the biology section, so I did a lot of DNA analysis. And I really like the science and the theory, and that's what my graduate degree is in. And I really liked some of it, not all of it. And it wasn't always a positive work environment. So I decided to just kind of stop that and just do what I've always wanted to do and live and work abroad. And then I came upon your class, and I was like, that looks interesting. And I've always been good at catching errors and grammar and all that. So I thought it'd be a good fit.
Yeah, I didn't find a single typo in your application for the show, which is
really?
it definitely bodes well. So I was going to ask you what made you want to enroll in transcript proofreading, but it sounds like you already answered that question. It just seemed interesting to you, and it was a good application between your scienciness, because there's a lot of science to be read about in court depositions and hearings and transcripts. I mean, back in the day when I was doing that as my primary income, I read a lot of scientific stuff. I think I've actually read deposition of some forensic analysts and some forensic scientists just because you have to be able to apply science to the law in order to validate a lot of stuff. I mean, DNA's only been known to be a thing for, I don't know, maybe you can tell me 30 years or something. Like they're solving cases that happened like in the 70s now.
Yeah, they started DNA analysis, I think it's sometime in the 80s, but it's definitely grown and it's a lot more sensitive now.
Like the Golden State Killer recently got busted because they picked up some DNA, which they didn't have that kind of expertise back then. So, I mean, it's just really cool to hear stories and cases being solved that were unsolvable back then before they even knew DNA was a thing. So really cool. And then it looks like you got hired as a proofreader with a British company. Tell me about that.
I had started your class. So my plan when I took your class was, so I wanted to have like 50 to 60% of my clients be court reporters. And then my other clients, I wanted to do scientific proofreading because of my background. And so even though I was in your class, I'm like, well, I just started thinking about that. And I just started Googling and I found this company and I emailed them because I saw they were British. I'm like, do you hire American proofreaders? All they did was they're like, do you have a resume? I was like, yeah. So I just sent it to them and they're like, okay, here's a test. It was copy editing for non-native English speakers. So there's a lot of people like scientists that want to publish in English speaking journals. And you have to have good English or the journal will not accept the paper. And so basically I passed that test. And I think I passed the test because was in your class and I had started reviewing all the grammar and punctuation stuff that I had forgotten. And so I passed the test and they're like, okay. And so I ended up doing that full time when I moved to Maui, because on Maui, there's not a lot of science jobs here. And so this company, they're like, do you want more work? I'm like, okay. So they kept sending me more work. And then I ended up actually getting a full-time remote employer with like health insurance. So they're on the East Coast and I'm about 6 hours behind. But yeah, every day I work for them. And then I've put my freelancing on hold briefly to finish my website.
Nice. That's really cool. And you passed that test with flying colors. So that's good too. And you were teaching before that, and you'd said in your application that you're really frustrated with your employer when you were teaching. So my next question is about what your life looked like before you started kind of working for yourself, working remotely.
I was in the Marshall Islands, and so it just kind of dawned on me like I could put in like hours and hours worth of work, and you don't get paid more for doing the extra work.
Right.
So I was just like, huh. Or if you're doing the bare minimum, I'm not trying that hard, you don't necessarily get docked either. And so when I was kind of researching and getting into your class, I was like, oh, if I work more, I'll get more money. And if I do a good job, I'll get even more clients and hopefully increase my income. So it was just kind of this light bulb moment. I was like, huh.
That was like a main reason why I got fired back in the day, was that I was kind of rebelling subconsciously against the whole, hey, you want me to do more work, but not pay me anymore. That's not fair. And I just really didn't dig that. And actually, I completely forgot to touch on, you talked about doing the non-native proofreading. And that's a really, really good niche because there are so many non-native speakers of the English language that need proofreaders. And that's just a niche that doesn't get talked about a lot. So I wanted to touch on that briefly. And a lot of people don't know this, but that is how I got my start in proofreading, was proofreading not for court reporters, but for non-native English speakers, graduate students at a German university where I studied and lived in 2007 and 2008. And so I know that was the very first proofreading I did and got paid for. And so it's just kind of funny. It's just, you kind of stumble into it, but we don't really think about that. We think about only the people that are native speakers, but there's so many people that need our help as proofreaders. English it's tougher to do because, I mean, their English is not great all the time. And, every now and then you'll land on somebody who just is like 99% there and they just need a little bit of tweaking, grammar and things like that. But it was definitely the toughest proofreading I've ever done. And so the few and the proud are the ones brave enough to go for that niche. So I think it's awesome too that you hit on the, hey, I'm going to get paid if I do more work instead of, working in a kind of environment where they just want you to do as much as you possibly can humanly for the same amount of money. I just don't think that's fair. And so even in my team, I reward people for their productivity and not for how many hours they put in. Because the reality is most people will just, if they got an 8-hour day, but they have 3 hours worth of work, they're going to take that 3 hours worth of work and spread it out over 8 hours.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, well, if the value's there and you can do something in 3 hours and do a great job versus taking 8 hours, I'm fine with that. So I like to reward people for that. So I'm curious, you sound very confident now because you've done it and you know that it works. But when you were just kind of getting started and you wanted to go and live abroad and fulfill that dream, were you scared or were you confident? What was it like when you were, any obstacles maybe that got in the way when you were getting started that almost made you not start or anything like that?
Well, just moving abroad, yeah. I mean, I was excited about it, and it was like I was going on this grand adventure. But sometimes, like late at night when I was lying in bed, I'm like, Melissa, what are you doing? I was just completely like extricating myself from my life back home and having to kind of start all over career-wise, friend-wise, country-wise. And it was a country that was so different from my own because I started out in China. Yeah, that was definitely challenging. It gets easier and you meet a lot of cool people and all of that. As far as the proofreading, I wasn't scared about, like some people are scared about, I won't be able to find clients and stuff because I sort of stumbled upon a client that was, giving me work. So I wasn't scared in that regard. But like a challenge, I think, especially in the beginning, was I didn't have a network of people. I do now because I joined the Society for Editors and Proofreaders. It's the UK version of the Editorial Freelancers Association. They had a medical editing class I wanted to take, so I joined them. So then there's people there, and then I've joined some Facebook groups. So that was a challenge at first. But now I think the challenge for me is just getting my website. I don't know anything about it, about how to do that. So I'm trying to teach myself how to do all that stuff. So that's my current challenge.
I taught myself too. And really, it's kind of funny to look back now and think that was the reason that I wasn't getting started, because I didn't know how to do a website, really. But there's so many things that I look back and I'm like, I didn't know how to do that, didn't know how to do that. But you just do it and then you learn as you go. And we got this beautiful thing called the internet, and we got Google, we got YouTube, we can can say, hey, how do we do this on WordPress or whatever builder you're using? There's help docs, there's step-by-step tutorials, and then there's also other freelancers out there who are experts. And so there's even the possibility of exchanging services, or some people are like, well, I can't afford to hire anybody. Well, what can you do in exchange? Can you barter? I mean, I barter with people. I have a massage therapist that comes to my house, and I bartered a MacBook Pro, my former MacBook Pro. We traded. So I get like him coming in to give me massages, and he gets a great computer. So it was a win-win. And so that's just an obstacle that I think we can get over. Where there's a will, there's a way. And so your life has obviously improved a lot since you got out of teaching and stopping doing the things that you were doing. So what is it about your life now that you like versus then? You mentioned your application security, you've got the steady income stream of your full-time job, and you've got the benefits, but what else is there that you really enjoy about your life now?
So I no longer am a slave to the alarm clock. I would get so mad at the alarm clock because I didn't want to get up because I wanted to sleep in more. And so now I just kind of let myself wake up naturally.
Yeah.
And I don't feel as though I'm in a hurry. Like I'm not in a hurry to get to work by a certain time. Like sometimes there's traffic here on Maui because I go into an office space 3 or 4 days a week. And so it's like, oh, if I get there 10 minutes later, it doesn't matter. So I feel kind of just a bit more relaxed. And I really like, my family's in the Midwest, so I really do enjoy being able to work from anywhere. So like my sister's getting married in October. So I'm just going to go home for like 4 or 5 weeks and I could still work.
Yeah.
And I don't have to use all this vacation time because when you fly all the way there from all the way out here, it's kind of an ordeal. So it's nice to kind of spread it out and kind of be able to spend time with people.
Yeah.
In a more relaxed way instead of smushing it all into like 1 week.
It is really so much more about things like being able to relax, having that freedom and flexibility. It's about so much more than the money. And I know people are curious, so I always ask the question because people want to know about the money. Because a lot of people do think, hey, it's all about the money, but we know we're in it. It's not all about the money. But I've got to ask, income-wise, how are you doing with your income each month?
So it's pretty good. So I've stopped freelancing, as I mentioned, but I'm in the process of restarting it. But overall, I think I take in, without the freelancing, about $4,400 per month. And then hopefully when I start freelancing again, that'll go up. I'm going to use the freelancing for like my fun stuff and maybe paying off my student loans.
Hey, that's all good. And it's great that you've got that steady income stream and then you can add on freelancing. Some people think, well, how can I do this? How can I do, proofreading or editing or whatever their, thing they want to do is? How can I do that with a full-time job? And here you are, you have a full-time job and you're like, I know I can do it. I did it before and I had put it on hold, but now I'm ready to get into it again. If you want to pay off that student loan debt, we've got a lot of people listening, I'm sure, have debt as well. It's a great way to do that. Just fine. We have more time than we give ourselves credit for, I think. And I've run into that as well, where I'm like, oh, I don't have time to do this. And I look at what I actually did. And we often don't know the way we're spending our time because we don't really pay attention. But when we really pay attention to how we're spending our time, we realize how much of it we actually have and how much we might actually be wasting. And I've been so guilty of that in the past, but what gets measured gets managed. And that's so cliche, but we measure how we spend our time, then we can manage it better. And so that's why there's so many time management books and courses and DVDs and media out there that say the best thing to do if you want to manage your time better is to track how you're actually spending your time. So, but I love the idea of waking up naturally. I do that most often myself, especially on the weekends. Sometimes I don't trust myself to wake up because I just love sleeping so much. And so I do set an alarm as like a safety net, but it's usually around the time I wake up naturally, like with the sun. So, and that's, I think, the biggest reward of being able to work for yourself is just having that freedom. And people think it's all about the money, but it's so about so much more than that. It's really being able to enjoy your life the exact way that you want it, which it sounds like you're in the thick of right now, and you're building, and you live in Hawaii. That's so amazing. And you do get to go and travel and see your family you never want to. And I think that's just excellent. You're living the dream, Melissa. So I'm super excited. I know that listeners are probably just eating this up. You can probably tell my voice. I'm like, I just love it. I get such a high of listening to people that are building the exact life that they want. And they've like zeroed in on, hey, they don't have to be millionaires. They don't have to have all the bells and whistles. They live wherever they want. I just actually recorded another episode today with somebody who is a nomad, and I'm not going to spoil it for you guys who haven't listened to the episode, but you're going to hear it. Traveling around, and she's like, I work between 8 and 20 hours a week and I love it, because I just do whatever I want. And she's like, sure, I can make more money, but I have this freedom, and it's just priceless. So that's really what it's about. Are you enjoying your life? And if you're not, what are you going to do to change that? So I could just go on and on about that, but I got to get to my next question. And that's about, your friends and family. So when you're making these transitions in your life, friends and family, significant other, what kind of support did you have? Or did you run into any obstacles where people were like, oh my gosh, you're crazy? I mean, you mentioned that you were laying in bed and sometimes calling yourself crazy, but were there other people in your life that were maybe like really skeptical? And if so, how'd you deal with that?
For moving abroad, yeah, people like I tell them, yeah, I'm quitting my job as a forensic scientist to move to China and teach science. And people are like, what? Why are you doing that?
I can imagine.
Not just my family, just everybody. And so some people, most people are like, oh, that's cool. But a couple of people in my family are like, why are you going to China? I wanted to do it, so I did it. As far as the proofreading and that, I think everyone was pretty supportive, especially when, I was able to get a full-time job. That was exciting. I think my significant other, he was skeptical at first about the proofreading because I think he's like, what is that? But I think he was mollified after I got the full-time job. He's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I know there's probably a lot of people listening now that have that exact same situation where they know that what they want to do exists and they've seen other people doing it and they're really intrigued by it and they want to get started, but then they've got a significant other or a family member in their corner that is skeptical and is like, so you have to, especially if it's a significant other, a husband, spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, getting them on board and getting them to support you. And I get so many emails, especially in the Proofread Anywhere inbox, people are like, my husband doesn't believe, or my wife doesn't believe this is a real job. What can I do? And so I just say, hey, we'll sometimes grant people access to the Proofreader Facebook group for all of our paying students, just so they could, I've even gone in and said, hey, this person's husband is skeptical. What would you say to them? Or do you have husbands that want to post a video or something? We'll just send them that information and just really show. I don't like to be always the one who proves that it's a legitimate thing. I like to involve members of the community and stuff. So, and I'm sure you've seen me do that because you're in the group, but crowdsource the proof, man. I don't need to do it all myself anymore because I've got plenty of people who can say, hey, yeah, this is legit. I mean, this is a great interview to prove just that. You went out and found a full-time proofreader job. There's really no better proof than that. So it's awesome. The work exists, people. The work exists. And I think confidence too is a big thing. And you know what you're doing. You've had experience as a proofreader. And so that is really key to going out and finding the clients and just having the guts to send that cold email and, sending out resumes and stuff. And I think your background gives you a lot of authority. But there's a lot of people that they're like, I don't have that kind of background. What about me? How can I get work? Well, it helps to have training. It helps to know what you're doing, because if you don't know what you're doing, then you're not going to feel confident about marketing your skills. And so that's my advice for anybody listening that's like, well, how do I get clients? And I don't know what to do. And well, you're going to know what to do when you know what you're doing. So do yourself the service, yourself a favor, and actually make sure you know exactly what you're doing so you have confidence in your skills. And then it's actually a very natural process. If you are confident in the skill that you have and you know what you're doing, then it makes it easy to sell it to people who need it because you know exactly what you're doing and you see. And that's why we test our people. We don't just have people come into the course and learn the information and send them on their way. We actually test them so they can see beyond a shadow of a doubt, I do know what I'm doing and here's proof type thing. So that's why we do what we do. So you said you're not a morning person, and I'm not either. So let's talk about that a little bit. Getting out of bed isn't my favorite part of the day either. But you get up around, what time does the sun come up in Hawaii? Do you kind of just get up when the roosters crow?
Well, actually, yes, there's a lot of feral chickens here. So roosters really, yeah, they run around. But actually, I just moved, so they're a little bit less now. But the sun comes up, but there's a big mountain in the way. So
man.
You can kind of see the light coming up. But I think I wake up probably around 7. I'm actually hoping to eventually get up around 6 because I'd like to incorporate a more positive and mindful morning routine. Because right now, I just kind of wake up, brush my teeth and all that. But then I kind of go straight to my work email because I do feel a little behind because I'm like 6 hours behind and everyone's already working. I kind of maybe want to stop that though and just give it another half an hour, 45 minutes and just kind of get ready for the day mentally and maybe go on a quick walk or drive to the beach, quick and walk there.
I think that's a great idea. And I'll tell you why. I think starting your day off in a good state of mind is the best thing you can do. And I relate so much to your story. I'm not a morning person at all. And I have the worst time still to this day getting out of bed. but I've gotten myself gradually, and it is a gradual thing. I think the people that fail the fastest are the ones that try to do it all at once and they fall flat on their face and then they give up because they're like, it didn't work for me. It's too hard. But if you make it just a gradual change where, okay, I'm going to get up or I'm going to just stop checking social media until, 9 a.m. or something like that, or I'm going to go out and take a 10-minute walk, or I'm going to journal for 10 minutes, or something really, really easy that is like, you'd be silly to not do because there's no excuse for it. Make it so easy that you can't fail, and then you can be a winner. But those little things create this positive ripple effect. And I'm all about the ripple effect, talking about how you start your day off positive, and if you start your day off negative, then you're going to have a ripple effect as well. And so the choices we make when we first wake up set the trajectory and the mood for the rest of our day. And it was hard for me because I'm not a cliche person. I'm an eye roller. And so I hear all these people saying, oh, start your day off with physical activity. I'm like, oh, I don't feel like it, so I'm not going to do it. But the reason I don't feel like it is because I haven't done it. But I've noticed that if I do it anyway, then I've got 100% success rate of it working and changing my mood. And every morning when I wake up and I don't feel good, I know that within an hour I can feel completely different if I just get out of bed and do the things. And so I can relate so much to the struggle it is to set up a morning routine. I think just being nice to ourselves too is key, because we'll beat ourselves up and say, oh my gosh, I only wrote for 8 minutes today instead of 10. I'm a failure. And like, no, if you wrote at all, you're a winner. And so it's really about making it so easy and so simple that it fits into your life effortlessly and you can be a winner. And then that's what makes it consistent, is that you just do it every day. And it's not, oh my gosh, I got to spend an hour meditating, or I have to spend an hour doing a workout. No, you don't. Just do it every day and then watch the small changes add up to a big difference in your life. So can totally relate to that. So Melissa, I'm curious about what's next for you in your life. You mentioned you're going to be picking up freelancing. So what's the next steps for you in making that happen? And where do you maybe see yourself in a year from now?
I have basically some phases that I'm going to try and implement. So like phase 1 is just get the darn website done. So that's my first thing. And when I initially start up freelancing again, I'm just going to focus briefly on like just the science stuff and just get all the kinks worked out. I'll get my dummy contract, get my Facebook page, all that kind of stuff, get all that done. And then I'm going to I'm taking an editing for fiction class because I love science, but sometimes it's mentally draining to do that.
I can imagine. Yeah.
So I kind of want to just read a murder mystery and copy edit that. And my secret vice is romance novels. So maybe throw in a romance once in a while. And further down the line, I think I'd like to get into copywriting. And then even further down the line, maybe, because I like teaching and I do miss having students. So I was thinking I have some ideas for some online classes, just based on my kind of life experiences, how to quit your job and live and work abroad, or how to be a forensic scientist. Apparently lots of people want to do that. We always got like 100 applications for one position. So,
wow.
Yeah. So those are kind of my long-term plans.
Yeah. And you're going to finish the transcript proofreading course, right?
Yeah, yes, because I wanted to kind of specialize in forensic experts since I kind of have the vocabulary already. It just kind of would come a little more naturally to me. So I think I'd like to also finish that and focus on those.
Absolutely. I love it. I love how you've taken your passion for science and your passion for words and you've just built upon that. And even in the niche, some would consider a small niche of science, there's just so much to build upon. And there's copy editing, writing, teaching it, online classes, doing the blog, doing forensic transcripts. Like there's just so much in it that you can just break it down and just make it bigger. And you've got the bug for learning skills. And so it's kind of like you did the proofreading thing. You're like, okay, what else can I do? And that's basically what happened to me. I did my proofreading business and then I started a blog, and then you just learn as you go, and then you see what else is out there. And the more you learn, the more you grow, which is, I hate cliches, but that's totally a cliche. And I don't care because it's relevant. And yeah. So final question, Melissa, I ask this of every single guest at the very end of the show, because people will listen to these episodes and they'll still be making excuses about why they can't do it because they're scared, or they just can't get past the fear of the unknown. And you've definitely conquered a lot of unknowns in your life. And so what would you say to somebody who's at home and they're like, well, that worked for Melissa, but I'm just too scared, or there's too many unknowns, or I just don't have the confidence, or what if I fail? Like the kind of fears that people deal with. What advice do you have for those folks?
I think I guess I'm going to call it like tough love. You just have to do it. I mean, because I hemmed and hawed about moving abroad for like 2 years because it was always kind of on the back of my mind. And I'm so glad that I did it. And I'm so glad that I found you. Sounds cheesy, but like talking to you kind of just, your website and your class like completely changed the course of my life. And I had these like limiting beliefs that, I didn't know I had. And I'm like, no, I can earn more because I've always been on like a fixed income. And I'm like, no, I have this ability to earn more than that. And that's really exciting. And if you just do it, I guess, to quote Nike.
Really, it's more skills means more money, and the more problems, bigger problems you learn how to solve, the more money you can make. And there's really the only limit that we place on ourselves is the ones that we place on ourselves, which is so kind of silly and simple sounding. But I think we do make it too complicated. Sometimes we just think, oh, somebody has to give me this job, or I have to go get this fancy 8-year degree or something. And it's just not like that. You just need to learn how to solve problems and you will make money. And you had mentioned one of my favorite authors and favorite bloggers, Mark Manson, in your application. So I just want to touch on that. You've started thinking about mistakes or perceived failures as unanticipated education. And I love that so much. I consider it continuing education when I make a mistake that maybe cost me some money or cost me some time. I'm like, well, now I know. And you always come out after a perceived failure, something that didn't pan out the way you thought, as a better, stronger, more educated person. And so it's not wasted time. It's not wasted money. It's just as valuable to learn what you don't want to do as it is on the way to learning what you don't want to do. You learn what you do want to do. You just have to do some stuff to get there, and not worry about what's perfect or what you're passionate about. Like, I wasn't passionate about proofreading. I just did it because I liked it and I was good at it. And through that, I found the things that I'm really am passionate about, which is teaching people and helping people also find that freedom that proofreading gave me. So, and that's what I really love. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't like do the thing I wasn't passionate about first. And so you just never know what doors are going to open until you walk through door number 1, or, any door, but just walk through a door and start doing things. So I think it's really, really good advice. So Melissa, I want to say thank you so much for being on the show. I know that we're going to have some questions and we're going to have a discussion over at the Work at Home Heroes Facebook group. So if you're not in that group, you're listening right now, hop on over so you can chat with Melissa about her episode. And if anyone's got any questions, I'm going to ask Melissa, where can people reach you?
Yeah, you can email me, Melissa@808editorial.com. But yeah, I'm on Facebook. It's just my first and last name.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for being on the show. This interview has been excellent.
Great. I was excited. This is fun.
Thanks again for listening, guys. I'd like to invite you to be a part of our Facebook community if you're not a member already. That group is called Work at Home Heroes. There's going to be a link in the show notes to find the group. We'll open up a discussion about this episode, so I hope to see you in there. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to the Work at Home Heroes podcast with Caitlin Pyle. Be sure to listen to previous episodes at caitlinpyle.co/podcast. While you're there, read the show notes and check out all the great links and resources mentioned in this episode and more. You can also subscribe to the Work at Home Heroes podcast so you'll automatically be notified when our next episode is available. Remember, as Caitlin says, mo skills means mo money.